Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Office Bloke Daz.
Office Bloke Aidan.
All right, Aid, bit of NFL here.
Yeah.
Who do you think is going to win the Super Bowl this year?
Ooh, it's a rogue claim. Season's not even started.
Rogue question, yeah.
Yeah,
I know.
rogue
Who's your hunch straight off the bat?
Buffalo Bills.
Buffalo. I'm going to go with.
I think it's just they've just been getting closer and closer and closer, and I think that time should now come.
Yeah, possibly. I'm going to go with the New York Giants.
Jesus. Why are you saying that?
I just can't see anything other than the big blue there. Where is the Super Bowl this year? Do you know?
I
think it's Atlanta. I've got it in mind it's in Atlanta.
Who do you think's going to win it?
I'll probably go with someone like the Cleveland Browns.
Are you taking the... Are you... What's your next one going to be? The Houston Texans? Jesus.
Tennessee Titans.
Tennessee Titans.
No, it's gonna. I mean, the Chiefs are going to be there again, aren't they? But I think when I looked at Philadelphia last year, Philadelphia looked pretty strong last year.
Yeah, they did.
So I think Philly might come through strong again.
Yeah.
So it's going to be.
It's not a bad shout.
But let's see, Let's see. But this is franchise quarterbacks on the new teams.
Yeah.
How will they do? Let's go for it.
I'm going to turn it over to the new quarterback of the New Orleans Saints, Derek Carr.
And now we place Derek Carr in there, who needed to get out of Las Vegas. He no longer was wanted and or appreciated there.
Lack of a better term, I was very upset. I was mad.
We have breaking news. The Jets and Packers have agreed to their mega trade.
In every NFL season, high-profile quarterbacks, known as franchise quarterbacks, find themselves leading new teams. Taking on these sudden changes presents unique challenges, where some thrive and some don't. To start us off, let's recap the franchise quarterbacks on new teams in 2022. Last year, there were 9 noteworthy starters that found themselves leading new teams. These 4, Mariota, Trubisky, Brissett, and Bridgewater, may not be considered franchise guys at this point, but they're still worth a brief mention. Mariota and Brissett had the most success, but were both benched late in the year for others. This included Deshaun Watson, who, after dealing with a major career hiatus, stepped in to play in an NFL game for the first time in nearly 2 years. With its new team, Watson was rusty at best, going 3-3 with a mediocre stat line. One of the men booted out of town after Watson's arrival was Baker Mayfield. After his fallout in Cleveland, Mayfield was traded in July, giving him just around 2 months to adjust to his new team, the Carolina Panthers, before opening day. His 6 starts were a brutal reality check. After injuries and being benched, Mayfield was granted a release from the team. He went on to sign with the Rams, had the most incredibly shocking final drive of the season 2 days after being signed, and then sunk back into mediocrity. The Rams did not re-sign him after the season. Carson Wentz was another guy who found himself on a new team in 2022. After his up-and-down season with the Colts the previous year, he was shipped out to Washington. In 7 games there, Wentz struggled mightily. He dealt with injuries and was benched. After the season, he was released from the team. For the Colts, the man they brought in to replace Wentz was former MVP Matt Ryan. Entering his late 30s, the Colts were hoping they could get the best of whatever Ryan had left. Unfortunately, it was a disaster. Ryan posted the worst QBR of his career, and this led to the franchise releasing Ryan and selected Anthony Richardson 4th overall in the 2023 draft. And finally, the biggest move of the 2022 offseason, Russell Wilson was sent to Denver in a blockbuster trade. With very high expectations, Russ and the Broncos were a huge disappointment. They finished dead last in scoring, finished 4-11, and Russ had the worst statistical season of his career. Overall, 2022 was a brutal year for franchise quarterbacks on new teams. Now, before we continue on to the 6 quarterbacks on new teams in 2023, this video is brought to you by SeatGeek. It's summer concert season, and there are so many artists on summer. Why? Don't miss any. 15 is going to get his only available video. Okay, let's start with the 2 guys you probably wouldn't consider franchise quarterbacks, but I feel are at least worth showing on screen. And I do want to cover a little bit more about Sam Darnold. At this point, most people would consider Darnold a failed first-round pick, considering this is his 3rd team in 6 years, and he's struggled a lot to this point. But his situation in 2023 is kind of intriguing. It's obvious that this is the best situation he's been in by far. Kyle Shanahan has the ability to race any quarterback's ability with this offense. And to be fair, Darnold's definitely gotten the short end of the stick with coaches in his career. Purdy was a huge surprise, but with his serious elbow injury, and the alarming fact that Trey Lance may never become the guy, Darnold could very well be starting at least a few games this year, and even potentially leading this team into the playoffs if things don't go right for Purdy and Lance. But I guess we'll wait and see. Up next, we go back.
I trust Purdy.
Purdy did all right last
reckon
season, didn't he?
I thought so, yeah. Especially going through as like the last pick in the draft.
Yeah, didn't he come through as like the third quarterback and then made it to the
as a starting quarterback.
as a starter, yeah.
Like a year later. Let us know about that because we're.
I say he's Mr. What did he call him? Mr. What? What was the word?
Irrelevant
again?
or something?
Mr. Irrelevant. Yeah.
To Baker Mayfield. Baker went from commercials about protecting your home to constantly moving from home to home. From my perspective, after watching every Baker game in Cleveland, it felt like his fiery personality masked the fact that he's limited and probably at best a low-end starter in this league. Now, looking back at the Bucs in 2022 specifically offensively, things were rough, even with Brady playing well. I'd say it's safe to consider Baker a downgrade at the position, and stylistically, he's not the same type of quarterback as Brady at all. Brady led the league in completions and attempts, and there's zero chance this offense would do the same thing with Baker. The Bucs in 2023 are led by a defensive head coach, a first-time OC, and they didn't really bring in much to bolster this offense. Overall, this seems like a throwaway year for Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Vegas predicts that they'll be around 6 wins, and I think they'll probably finish below that. Now, staying in the same division, Derek Carr is the new man leading the New Orleans Saints. Entering his 10th season, Carr has only played in one career playoff game, and despite making the Pro Bowl last season, nobody really considers him a top 10 guy, and many don't even consider him a top 15 guy. He's around that average tier of starting quarterback. Now, in his defense, he's been about the only constant in a poorly ran franchise. This move to New Orleans is intriguing because in 2022, the Saints boasted a top 10 defense, something Carr's never had by his side. In fact, he's never had a top 20 defense by his side. Also, Carr is making the move from literally the toughest division in football to the weakest. I think Carr is a slight upgrade from Andy Dalton, and as of right now, you could say that he's the division's best quarterback, at least until Bryce Young gets his feet under him. He also possibly has the division's strongest defense backing him up. The Saints are considered by many websites to have the easiest schedule in the league this season. With all these factors, there's a
That's something that baffles me every time as well. They don't even play all the teams.
All teams, yeah.
They literally play some teams.
Yeah, I know, but you can't. It's impossible to play all the teams. It'd be.
No, I know, but then some teams have an easier season than the other.
Yeah, but then when you get into it, it's the playoffs that matter.
But you might not be in the playoffs.
No, but what I'm saying is, if you're a good team and you've got an easy run, right, an easy fixture list,
yeah,
you're going to get to the playoffs. You should
Right.
make the playoffs. So if you get to the playoffs, then you're playing with the other better teams. So then you've got to be really good to win the Super Bowl. You've got to beat some of the best teams.
Yeah, true, but you could be.
But then again, there's a lot goes down to that one day game
in a lot harder games and get a worse record than a team that's worse than you but played easier games, so they have a slightly better record and get playoffs instead of you.
The other thing you've got to worry about as well as going to the playoffs is that time of the season when injuries. You start picking up injuries or more injuries.
Yeah.
Weather changes. Weather gets colder in many places. Not
Also, the thing that I don't really like is you can't when it gets to playoffs, you only play people from East or West.
Yeah.
So if you're East, you only play teams
people
from East.
Yeah.
So you can never ever play a West team in a playoff game.
Yeah. But it's is that right?
I think
I thought playoffs is open. I thought it's just Super Bowl you play.
I thought it was NFC and AFC.
Yeah, NFC, AFC. Yeah.
Actually, yeah, it's not. It's
not
just
East West.
it's NFC, AFC. It's
yeah,
basketball.
correct.
That's East
Yeah,
West.
correct. Yeah, AFC, NFC. Yeah, but you could have, like I say, you get to the playoffs. You could be a really good team in a bad fixture list, and you could get to the playoffs. But once you get there, then you've got to take into consideration what players you've got fit.
Yeah.
Don't know if who knows, but that's you're 16 games in, aren't you?
Yeah.
Going into it.
Reason why Vegas thinks they'll win 9 to 10 games. In my opinion, I see the Saints being a low-key playoff team. Carr will probably put up solid stats,
Bengals
and they'll
favorite.
be that random team that starts 4-0, but nobody really expects them to do anything serious in the postseason. I could definitely see Carr making another Pro Bowl in a relatively weak quarterback conference, and the Saints getting bounced in the first round of the playoffs. Now, for the underwhelming move to replace Carr in Las Vegas, we have Jimmy Garoppolo. It was obvious the Niners were going to move on from him, and this location made sense with the connection to head coach Josh McDaniels. But let's be honest about Jimmy G. Opposite of Derek Carr, he has benefited tremendously from great situations around him his whole career. And that's just not the case anymore. With him being injury prone, Jimmy G feels like a downgrade after Carr. which is kind of funny considering Jimmy G was the next quarterback taken after him back in 2014. I feel bad for Raiders fans. You're probably going to get at least a few games of old man Brian Hoyer under center. It feels like another big year for Josh Jacobs, but who knows? Vegas has the Raiders at a 7.5 over-under, and in the toughest division in football, I definitely see them finishing below that with Jimmy G. Alright, lastly, we have the biggest league-wide acquisition of 2023.
That the New York Jets have agreed to terms on a trade for Aaron Rodgers, the 4-time MVP.
I think the question now is which Rodgers is going to show up in New York.
The team gave up significant pieces for it just to be a one-year deal. I'm having a blast, so I don't really see this as a one-year and done thing.
First off, let's start with where this franchise was last season. Under second-year head coach Robert Saleh, the defense made a massive leap going from dead last in scoring to 4th. But as a team that looked playoff-bound through 11 games, the offense is what ultimately held them back. They would go on to lose their last 6 contests, with probably the worst quarterback play in the league. In their last 3 games, they scored a total of just 15 points. Jets fans have a soft spot in their heart for Mike White, but in all honesty, none of those quarterbacks were really deserving of a starting job in this league. Now enter Aaron Rodgers, the single biggest quarterback upgrade of 2023. Despite moving to a new team for the first time in his career, it's important to note that he will be working closely with offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett. Together in Green Bay, they were a deadly duo, and away from each other in 2022, it was really rough for both of them. Now reunited, this is a promising sign that Rodgers will bounce back in 2023. The Jets offense has a few promising pieces. They already have the reigning Offensive Rookie of the Year in Garrett Wilson, and running back Breece Hall is returning from injury. He was one of the best backs in football before he got hurt. It's also nice for Rodgers that they got a few of his guys that he had back in Green Bay. But on the contrary, according to fans online, the offensive line is still a major concern, and it could be what holds this offense back. Also, in my last video, I covered how quarterbacks have done historically once they hit 40. With Rodgers turning that age this season, history outside of Tom Brady is not too promising. I took a poll on my community tab asking you guys what you think will be the result of the Jets' 2023 season. Most of you feel like they will be okay. I think many Jets fans have a hard time being optimistic because of their history. I do gotta agree with the majority. I see this team going 10-7 and losing in the wild card. Only 4% of you think that this team will win it all, and that's completely reasonable. It would be one of the most shocking NFL stories ever if that were to happen.
I was going to say, surely that 4% don't actually believe that. They're just Jets fans.
They're deluded Jets fans, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's the fireman that stands in the crowd going, J-E-T!
But I will finish with this. In 2020, Vegas saw the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who had just acquired Tom Brady, as a 9-10 win team. Fans felt like this was now a playoff team, but probably not a Super Bowl contender. Safe to say, how things ended that season was pretty shocking.
Stop again. Brady play action. Looking. Third option. End zone. Touch! Gronkowski again.
Yeah, he's Brady knows how to do it though, doesn't he?
Yeah,
Bit of a different league when it comes to that. I mean, Rodgers, great quarterback, but I think the team he's going into is not as good as what he may have had in his heyday up at Green Bay.
Yeah. Who is it you said you reckon's going to win it all this year then?
I fancy either Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's what you said.
Bengals were favourites.
Bengals were favourite. When he said Bengals, I kind of wasn't thinking about them. Yeah. I think they got like Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, and I think they're definitely going to be up there.
They were up there last year, weren't they?
But then I saw another team and I was like, I'm going to put it between 3 teams: the Buffalo Bills, the Bengals, and also the Minnesota Vikings.
Oh yeah.
I reckon they might do something.
Be interesting to see. We'll be keeping an eye on it. We'll be doing watch-alongs as well for that this season. So there'll be all kinds of stuff going on with the NFL when it starts, and college football as well. So keep your eyes peeled. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well, please.
Thank you.
It does help us, and we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.